Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? Verse 16. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble and did shake kingdoms? So Lucifer is exposed. The so-called white man Esau Edom. And he is being brought low and he's being exposed. Call halal Yahweh Bashim Nabashai Bashim Rakakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners. And to the Aquath that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malchaamah from the branch of the Greatmillstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in truth. And this will be on the historical race facts channel, or critical race facts channel. And this is part 2 of from the video. This information here is brought to you from the Birth of a White Nation at Dr. Jacqueline Badalora on the Rob G's channel. Let me close that. The real Nordic black, all right, because the true Norseman, the true Englishman, the true Scot actually means black. The true Irishman, Dublin, means city of the blacks. It's just, and that is, it's just a fact that they've covered up, and and this sort of information, because they keep making movies and producing videos showing you people being pale that were not. And whiteness is a creation, is a false narrative, and everything racist that is connected to it, all the way up to the modern day media, is still prevalent and still controlling you. What's taught to you in your, that's why you keep seeing movies showing you Vikings is white, and the ancient Greeks is white, and all that sort of thing. That there was a time period when Esau Edom took over Greece, and then it became white, just like he did in Africa when he took over Egypt. And there was a time period when when the Ptolemies took over Egypt, and then they became white Egyptians. But what you have to understand is that all these places were set up by so-called dark colored people. All right, not and everybody this dark is not the same. That's another lie and misconception that is pushed by the so-called white man. All right, all skin folk is not kinfolk. So just because you brown complected don't mean you're the same. And actually, and I'm glad that Rob G is wearing a black shirt, because you can clearly see that he will be looked at and referred to as a black man when he's brown in complexion. How are you calling someone who's brown in complexion black? See, it's a complete, and that's just evident of the false narrative. His shirt is black and no one's skin is that color. All right. And you try to tell that to idiotic black people, and they just, even they don't get it. They don't understand. So just the same as I'm about to prove to you that whiteness was created, I'm also about to prove to you that blackness was created. All right. And how the so-called, and when you look at the copper color of Rob, so-called Native Americans, who are the brothers to the so-called black man, were one and the same, and going through a very similar struggle at this time. All right, we're both enslaved and sold as slaves at this very time. And in the North, there was, and like I said, there was some indentured slavery, although in the South it was just hardcore slavery. All right, but there was some indentured slavery. But even the indentured slaves of North America eventually became regular slaves. Okay, so without any further ado, let's just jump into this and let the Psalm 64:8 happen by Dr. Jacqueline Badalora. That spirit is on Esau Edom heavy to expose all this history that's been covered up, which is purposely left out of the textbooks.
You have European indentured servants who are treated terribly. 2 out of 3 died in year 1. the first few decades, and they were
Gotcha.
they were just treated like disposable trash.
Right.
And so those are the two really important things, that European people were just treated like disposable garbage. And at the same time, people of African descent were treated on par with people of European descent.
Now let's make this clear too. A lot of those people of European descent who were pale in color, that's how she's making the separation. A lot of them were still Israelites. They had black forefathers. This is why many of them were slaves and sold into slavery. Now, true, granted, some of them did put themselves into indentured slavery, but they were simply paying off their boat ride and the food that they used to bring themselves and their families over here to America. And they were freed and able to buy homes and live their good old, their lives after that. So, all right, so let's get that clear. Let's make that very clear.
And so that lasted for a long period of time until there was a massive rebellion in the colony of Virginia called Bacon's Rebellion.
And that Bacon's rebellion is very relevant to what's going on today, because now the Esau-Edom is starting to feel the low level, the regular Joe Esau-Edom is feeling the pressure and the frustration and the oppression that Jacob is feeling. Now all of a sudden we're all together in this. Count the 99 percenters. Okay, so it was the same thing back then. Only thing difference is back then they didn't have to, give you the special sauce or the Marcus Aurelius or anything like that. What they did back then was they created these false narrative of classes of people and divided them by color. And see, that's not working anymore. All right, so now they're doing it again, but they're using a different device.
Rebellion.
Yeah, and so this disrupted the colony for well over a year. And in fact, it
was pretty big, more than people think, from what I read. A huge rebellion.
And is it me, or does Rob G, his voice kind of sound like Alazar? He sound like the dude, the head of Sakari.
No, I also, before you continue on, one last thing that I was trying to say when I went blank was I noticed that you draw a lot of your work from Theodore Allen's invention of what was it called, his 2-volume work that I have as well, invention of the white race. It's very similar. I
do, and in the second edition, I've incorporated significantly from Lerone Bennett Jr.
Okay.
And he's an African-American historian who really takes on white historians didn't he write
something before the Mayflower or something like that?
That was his first book, yes.
There you go. Yeah.
He's terrific. I didn't know about his work when I wrote the first version.
Right.
He contributed significantly to me for the second one.
Definitely.
And so you have this huge rebellion that locked down Virginia for well over a year. In fact, the governor and some of the other significant loyalists to England actually had to live on the James River for a number of months, waiting for the English to send troops in,
right,
before they could come to the shore again of Virginia. And once the troops
catch the beeline home,
exactly. The rebellion was ultimately put down, but not without having made a huge, significant impact, not just in Virginia, but throughout the English colonies in North America. Why? Because the form of capitalism that was taking hold, a form of capitalism that depends on huge numbers of unpaid or paid very little laborers who are paid very little. It's a capitalism that we're very familiar with. Absolutely. And so it threatened all of the ruling elite in those English colonies that, wow, look what can happen when the masses, the 99%, actually unite together against their economic enemy, which is the 1%.
Right.
Yep. And so following Bacon's rebellion, and here's where Theodore Allen, this comes purely from Theodore Allen, he digs into these letters going back and forth between the legal oversight authority over in London, who had...
So this is crucial evidence. These are the letters that were going back and forth to the colony, to the legal oversight in London. This is very important that you pay attention to this portion.
They're in charge of all the laws of the English colonies, and then the ruling elite in Virginia. And so they're writing letters back and forth. And in this one letter, the ruling elite in Virginia tell the legal oversight authority in London, hey, don't worry about this. We've got it under control. And they articulate essentially that we're going to be pursuing a divide and conquer strategy to make sure Bacon's rebellion can never rise again.
Because in Bacon's rebellion, you had Negroes, Native Americans, so-called Latinos, and other people of melanated, and pale people, so-called white people, the Edomites, were all standing together against the oppression of the elites because of the bad deals they were getting. And some of those elites were wealthy Huguenots, Negroes as well, sellouts who were down with the so-called white man, and they still are today. Okay.
And so this is the moment, right? This is where, up until this point, if you study the legal record in the English colonies, you will not see a single reference to any human being called a white person.
Wow.
Doesn't exist. Were there people with low levels of melanin like me? Of course. They were not called white people, nor did they conceive of themselves as such.
Right.
The legal record referred to people as English and other freeborns, simply as Christians. Usually, more often.
So basically, just like in the ancient world, you were called by your father's name, or you were called by the land which you came from. All right? You weren't called a color.
Not a person was just referenced by their nation of origin, you know.
Right, and also from what I noticed in antiquity, they and a lot of times they were called. Have you heard of the work by Nell Irving Painter?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
also
yes.
in the new second edition, yes.
There you go. So she also talks about how, you know, of place instead of so much on race, but instead of race, think place. So like. Right. The Scythians, if I'm saying it right, Scythians, the Picts, the Saxons, and certain other names. And also she gets a lot on Caucasian.
Yes.
Blumenbach, really bringing that out before.
Beautiful skull.
Right.
Right, and Blumenbach, you know, basically lambacked off this right here. So because this whiteness hadn't even come out yet. So all these false scientific lie pseudoscience about white, black, or what was the term that they used? Negroid, Caucasoid, and Mongoloid. All that came on the tails of this newly created thing of whiteness. Okay, so all that's just pseudoscience and lies in the first damn place. All right, and remember they took Caucasoid, Mongoloid, and Negroid and made that Ham, Sham, and Japheth, which was a lie.
It's really kind of a comedy when you learn the history. If it weren't so tragic, right? The results.
And she's right, because it's laughable when you know history, when you understand these things, the bullshit that can continue. Like there's a video that I'm going to do, YASHARAHLA, a response to about Joseph, the keeper of the laws. And of course, they're showing Joseph yet again as a so-called white man and the Egyptians. That's a complete and total lie. All right? Because during the time of Joseph, the Egyptians were still very, very melanated, and so were the Israelites. All right? All that scattering mixture hadn't happened. The Israelites were being compared to Hamites, to Africans. Why? They were intermingling and breeding. You know, a lot of them had wives and were living right next to them.
Right. No, so as you were saying, I didn't mean to. I shoot in every now and then just to.
So here, following the quashing of Bacon's rebellion and the articulation of this intent to pursue a divide and conquer strategy, this is what we see. We see bundles of laws getting passed and that appear in the legal record, where this entirely new group of people called white people is getting asserted.
Right. Also, indigenous people, correct, during that Bacon's Rebellion, they were also affected.
Oh, absolutely. They were. Bacon's Rebellion had two phases. The first was an absolute slaughter of indigenous people that was pursued by Nathaniel Bacon. The impetus for the rebellion itself was that Nathaniel Bacon believed that 2 or 3, I think, of his neighbors' indentured servants had been killed, and he believed Native Americans had done it. And so he wanted...
And that's why and Nathaniel Bacon was more than likely controlled opposition and set up, because Nathaniel Bacon himself was an Edomite, a so-called white man. All right? And they went on a rampage. The first part was to kill off Gadites. Why? To clear up and get more land and property. Okay?
A strong, violent response on the part of Virginia.
Because I remember you mentioning in a video about some people thinking like, okay, well, we need like a Bacon's Rebellion again, where all the lowly workers come together in unison. But like you said, it wasn't. It was more complex than that.
Absolutely.
Like most things in life. That it also involved the slaughtering of indigenous people and other things like that.
Yes. Yeah. It can't be our model, unfortunately. I think it offers a glimpse of our possibilities when we unite. But unfortunately,
I think because when you talk about Bacon's Rebellion, or it's certain words you use, some people, like a hyperbole or whatever, some people just, grasp onto that and think that.
I think it's because we desperately want something as our guide, to hold on to.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, we have to make that.
Right.
Us.
Right.
Because
now, can we get into some of the miscegenation? Because I know that plays an important role as well.
It does.
And actually, we talk about that.
The very first law where we see a reference to anybody called a white person occurs in 1681, and it comes out of an amendment made to a Maryland law.
Okay.
And that law reads like this. English and other white women who marry enslaved Negro men, end quote, are, and then here's the punishment for this marriage. She is enslaved for the duration of her husband's life. Any children that they have are enslaved into their 20s. And so this law represents the birth of anti-miscegenation law.
So now that we've got that, let's play this yet again.
You see, this is the reason why women like me have the preferences that we do. Because of men like you who believe us white women are only here to breed more mouth breathers like you. Because after all, that is the mindset of the patriarchal society that you guys so carefully constructed years ago to keep us under your feet for decades. And now when you see us choosing who we want to be with, it just gets under your skin, doesn't it? Yeah, because I more than likely share the same skin tone as you. You feel so comfortable to come onto my page and project your residual racism on me. Try keeping that same energy in the streets with gentlemen with darker skin tone than you.
They won't do that.
Because I guarantee you can't log off and do that. No, you want to stay here and try to harass me. That's okay. Keep attacking my age, my gender, my preferences. In the words of Miss Minaj, you can't get rid of me, bitch.
So basically, those laws were created to ensure that white males got the first pick of their women, because prior to that, they weren't. So it wasn't until he empowered himself and made sure that all the wealth and power came to him, then he was able to get the women. Because prior to that, when the so-called black male, native male, also owned a home, had money, had everything that he had, the women weren't choosing him, including his own women. Habakkuk 2:12. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and establisheth a city by iniquity. Behold, it is not of Yahweh of hosts that the people should labor in a very fire, that the people should weary themselves for very vanity. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of Yahweh as the waters cover the sea. Woe to him that giveth his neighbor drink, and puttest thy bottle to him that maketh him drunk, also that thou mayest look on their nakedness. The Edomite policy, false history and lies, medicines. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be upon thy glory. And the right hand of the Lord is creating a horrible vexation and destruction upon Esau, Edom, and upon his false patriarchy that he set up, which is American. Even his woman is rebelling against him, and shameful spewing is upon his glory. Call halal Yahweh Bashim Nabashai Bashim Rakakudash Wa Abba Baba Kwam YASHARAHLA.